matter is Paul can be a little too much, 95% of the time, but he is a legitimate NFL reporter. And reporting, I think, is something that has gotten lost over the last couple of years. Jim Wyatt was an expert reporter when he reported on the Titans. I mean, this was a guy, Jim Wyatt, who would lose sleep at night if he thought he was going to lose a story. Well, now he works for the team, so he's not a reporter anymore. And so I thought it was really good on Paul's part to do the digging on the story and come to find out that according to Paul, he talked to scouts. The scouts said that their teams knew. Now, that being said, I struggle to absolutely just bury and hammer the Titans. I will say this. This kind of reminds me of an NCAA thing. Not that this has anything to do with the NCAA, but when a coach gets caught cheating or a program gets caught paying players, the head coach always says, well, I didn't know. And usually the local fans believe the coach. And they try to stand behind the coach because, well, he didn't know. But we all know that part of the NCAA rules, lack of institutional control or whatever they call it, is that it's your job to know. So I get it. Maybe the Titans didn't know, but it is their job to know. And Paul Kaharski is reporting that other teams knew. So if other teams knew, then they did a better job than the Titans did. But I'm not there to bury the Titans based upon this report yet, and here's why. Ian, you remember the situation around the COVID outbreak the Titans had in October?
Yes, I do.
And do you remember how every national insider, guys with way better sources than anybody locally has, Rappaport, Schefter, Florio, they just chucked the Titans under the bus.
True.
I mean, you were living in Connecticut. You probably heard about this, and you didn't even cover the Titans or follow the Titans at that point.
I did hear about it, yes.
Okay. I mean, they buried the Titans. The league sources, Tom Pelissero, Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport, Mike Florio. Florio came on our show and said, hypothesized that he was hearing from people in the league that Vrabel and Robinson were going to be suspended for the rest of the year. I think the Titans paid like a $200,000 fine. They hypothesized the Titans would lose their first-round pick. None of that happened. So all these league sources are telling these league insiders, including two of whom, Pelissero and Rappaport, work for the official league network. And they're relaying to everybody that, oh, yeah, the Titans screwed this up. They weren't wearing masks. They weren't doing the testing right. They weren't this, that, and the other. And I believed it. I believed what they were reporting. And Floyd, to his credit, maybe credit, not credit, I don't know. But Floyd, to his credit, didn't believe any of it. Now, we know Floyd's got a direct line to John Robinson. And that was a big, argument on our show at the time, was whether or not we believed all this reporting. And Floyd just didn't believe it. And it turned up that no suspension for Robinson, no suspension for Vrabel, no loss of a draft pick, nothing. So I guess what I'm saying is I believe Paul Kaharski's reporting. I don't think Paul's making it up. I think he talked to scouts, and I think the scouts told him whatever they told him, whether they're telling the truth or not. I don't know why they would lie. I don't see what they have to gain by lying. I mean, if anything, if the Titans are this incompetent that they can't do any homework on prospects, don't you think that if you were a scout around the league or a general manager around the league, you'd want the Titans people to keep their jobs because you would want that level of incompetence to continue? So I don't see why they'd lie about it. But I still have a hard time today of burying the Titans just because of what happened in October under similar circumstances. Reporting that I believed in and trust painted the Titans in a horrific light. And even though it's not apples to apples with this and the COVID situation, I guess that's where I stand today. I mean, I know that that's not like fun. Like, I know that's not the fun part of this or whatever, because you want someone to get on there to hammer them or take up for them or, yes, I don't know. Like, I'm asking all of you, callers, texters, Caroline, Ian, we're going to start with you too. What do we make of this? What do we make of the report? What do we make of kind of the situation as we know it? What do we make of the sympathy maybe we should give the Titans? I mean, what do we make of it?
I mean, I fully believe that the Titans are telling the truth and that they did not know about this. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. They didn't know about this because they wouldn't draft someone who had a past like this, especially given what happened in last year's draft. However, I don't know if that's acceptable that they didn't know. I don't think it's acceptable that other teams did know and the Titans did know. What kind of homework are these other teams doing?
So you think it's a fact here that you're taking the Karski report as fact that not every team, other teams did know?
Yes, I'm going to believe that because that is what the information is being presented. Now, if there's more information that comes out, there's more reporting that comes out, I'm more than happy to step back on what I just said and say, okay, more information came out and I'm willing to reevaluate what I initially thought. But yes, I'm going to believe that other teams did know and the Titans did not.
Even if somebody told you that other teams, I mean, here's the thing, I guess. I don't want to say like I'm in a tough spot here, but I get the feeling that I'm trying to think of the right way to say this. I get the feeling that there could be conflicting information as to whether or not other teams knew. And I'll say this. I don't think Paul Kaharski really has any skin in the game here. Mm-hmm. As in, I don't think that, he loses anything if other teams didn't know, or at least before he made the report. I don't think he has anything to gain by it other than reporting what, is the truth, which is in theory what a reporter does. But again, I mean, to your point, like what you're doing is what I did in October. What I did in October was I said, hey, Schefter's saying it, Rappaport's saying it, Florio's saying it. There's no way all those guys could be wrong. There's no way. And then that ended up not being the case. So, I mean, to me, I don't, like as a fan, like the idea that they didn't know, if that is the reality, and again, I mean, we have one report that's out there that says that other teams knew. Nobody else has reported, regardless of what's being discussed behind the scenes, nobody else has reported that other teams didn't know. So all we have on record is the report. And again, like I said, I trust Paul Kaharski's reporting. So I'm cautious about it. I mean, I'm cautious. I mean, the idea that other teams knew about it and the Titans didn't, like that kind of pisses me off. Like that we should just love the local team so much that if they didn't know, like, it's like, I mean, hey, they didn't know. We talked about this yesterday. I mean, I think it's ridiculous. Not knowing is just as bad as knowing. Although in this case, knowing and then saying you didn't know, I think ultimately that John Robinson gets fired if it comes out that the Titans knew. And I don't think he's willing to risk his job on Rashad Weaver. So that throws another wrench into the equation. I mean, this is all bad for the Titans, however you want to put it. I guess I'm just not willing to say, like, I want to make the conclusion just like everybody else. I want to make the conclusion that Paul Kaharski says other teams knew, so if other teams knew and the Titans didn't know, then the Titans are dummies. I want to do that. I just can't do it yet.
What would make you say that?
What would make me say that other teams knew, or
yes,
that I
what
could
would
believe
make you convinced that other teams did know? I mean, there's just so little
tough.
information out there. I mean, so I just have to go with what we know. Take everything with a grain of salt, and then just evaluate as more information comes out. And I hate saying that it's a waiting game. We just have to figure things out. I hate saying that, but I just can't jump to any conclusions and stick to anything so vehemently until we know what is out there.
Although you did jump to the conclusion that you believe that the other teams knew.
Because that's what I know. That's what we all know. That's the information that we know now. So I'm going to believe that until I have information that shows otherwise.
Ian, what do you think?
I tend to believe the reporting for the most part.
I'm telling you, I believe Paul Kaharski. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
saying that he didn't do it, that he didn't talk to scouts and the scouts didn't tell him.
You just wonder
I
how many
just-
teams actually knew, and
Right.
should there be more? Is it a low number? Not if not all the teams knew, are all the teams just complete, dropping the ball on it? How many teams knew? Is it like because they were from the certain area? Is it like a localized thing? And the fact that no national people really, the story didn't really even come out until after he was drafted is also kind of strange. So, I don't know. I'd like to see some more info trickle in, I think.
Then again, I mean, the Isaiah Wilson stuff happened last year. I had a college coach today tell me, and he was in the SEC when Isaiah Wilson was in the SEC, and the college coach told me, oh, yeah, we all knew. Like, I'm like, what? He was like, yeah, we all knew about Isaiah Wilson. We all knew that he was a little kooky, and we also knew that he didn't really love football. And I'm like, well, how do you – I mean, like, what? Like, the sheer level of incompetence that it looks like the Titans are operating that draft room with right now really, really bothers me. But I also have such a hard time levying accusations when I know there are things the Titans probably want to say that they can't say. I'm trying to be fair here. I think if there's anything that I've earned, even from the people that don't like me, on all of our local teams, is that I kind of tell it how it is. That I don't think you have to worry about me sucking up to somebody or me sticking up for somebody based upon, well, this radio station doesn't want the Titans. Like, I could care less. I can't tell you the last time we had the general manager on the show. I can't tell you the last time we had the coach on the show. I can't tell you the last time we had David Poyle on the show. I can't tell you the last time we had John Hines on the show. That doesn't bother me. Burying the Titans when we shouldn't and getting it wrong on the front end for some reason bothers me now. Like, maybe it's because of what happened in October. I don't know. But that's where I am today. And I'm just having a hard time doing it. And yet at the end of the day, I have a hard time not looking at the Titans and saying, well, in some area, you screwed up. And then I think the question has to be, how much confidence do we lose from another screw up? And what do we believe? 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Your reaction, calls and texts. Again, the Paul Kaharski report says he talked to 5 scouts. 3 said they knew about the Weaver incident. There's also the Weaver trust factor. Blake Bedingfield was on the morning show, had some interesting things to say. We'll touch on that, former Titan scout. Plus, there's one comparison I'm going to make to John Robinson today that I think we all need to be honest about. We'll get to that coming up next. Stillman and Company, we are live from the wholesaling studio, powered by RumbleOn.com. It's ESPN 102.5 The Game, and we're streaming on the Game Nashville app.